Do it.
Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a nurse and lead emergency services, the front line during a pandemic? Well, my name is Dr. Viola Pierce. I'm the owner and the CEO of VP Nursing and the Nurse Nurturer and the facilitators of Secret Suppers Worldwide with Dr. V, where our goal is to equip healthcare professionals to be financially stable, to lead a full, empowered life. Our goal is to come to you each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to give you the fuel to crush your goals and to show up exceptional on a daily basis. You can follow us on Twitter, The Nurse Nurturer, Instagram at VP Nursing, and if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And please share this video. You can also visit us at our website at vpnursing.com. Our special guest today is none other than my personal love, one of my greatest friends, Miss Kimberly Langston. Kim Langston is the Associate Nursing Officer at her local hospital. Prior to joining the team at this hospital, she served as a nurse in many and numerous departments, including nurse management roles at several prestigious organizations. She has taught in nursing and EMS education programs since 1991. At Durham Technical College, Wake Tech, and Johnson Community College, and has been an American Heart Association instructor for many years. Kim has volunteered doing medical missions work, working with the American Cancer Society and Relay for Life, served in leadership with the Emergency Nurses Association, sits on the board for the nonprofit organization, the Nurse Nurturer. Imagine that. And is the current clinical director of the North Carolina State Special Olympics. After 30 years in healthcare, Kim continues to have a passion for the patient, nurse development, and servant leadership. She is one of the most compassionate and encouraging nurses I know, with a true love for her patients and her staff. So I'm super excited to have you. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about why you became a nurse.
Well, I was in high school, and there was a friend of mine who had an aunt. We lived in a rural area, and she had weeping sores on her legs. And I asked her about that, and she said she was standing up. She worked in manufacturing. She didn't get a lot of opportunity to sit, and she had developed ulcers on her legs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming through the galls. It was terrible. And I said, well, why don't you go to the doctor? And she said, I don't have enough money to go to the doctor. And she told me that her insurance cost her family over $400. And at that time, she was only making $10 an hour.
Wow.
So that would have been over half. And I remember praying, I left her house praying, and I'm begging God to give me the opportunity to go to nursing school. Those are the people that I wanted to help. I said, I was like, God, you can pay me an apple pie, a chicken. I don't care. As long as I can get the opportunity to take care of these people, that's all I want to do.
Sweet. I love that story. So now, what are some of the most important decisions that you have to make as a nurse leader in your organization?
Well, I think you have to look at it a couple different ways. One, for me, it's always about the patient and the staff. So those are the most important decisions to me. I don't think you can drive the change that you want, the performance that you want, customer service that you want, unless you love on your staff and let them love on their patients. And that is what I try to create, is a culture that they enjoy working in, because we're at work way more than we're at home as nurses.
Right.
And I love for them to be excited to come to work, to have the opportunity to change what they want to change, and to create that environment. And then when they get that passion ignited to be able to do what they love doing, then patients receive the care that they deserve. And you can see that intimacy and vulnerability opening up so that you can have that dynamic.
Yeah, that was one of the things. I think that's one of the things why we resonated so well with each other, and the reason why we connected with each other. And the story is that I was actually on vacation in Myrtle Beach, and I was just chilling, and Kim had been given my number probably a few weeks earlier, and she got the opportunity to call me. And so we sat on the phone and we talked for like at least, I don't know what, 3 hours. We talked forever. And it was because we have a passion for the healthcare professional. If you don't care for the healthcare professional,
Yes.
then the patient will never be cared for. And so that is a hugest thing. So as an organization gets larger, there can be a tendency for the institution to damper the inspiration. How do you prevent this from happening?
I think you have to develop each area of the hospital, I think, develops microcultures, right?
Okay.
And when you become large and the overarching, the vision and the mission of that institution is given to you, you can take that as a team and then use that team to and tap into their gifts and talents to ignite their passion to serve that mission and that vision of that institution. And that is when I would say the release of your team maximizes that cultural influence. And that is what I love to watch. I love to watch people in roles and positions and doing things that they absolutely love to do, because when they're in that role or whatever they're doing, you can see how important it is to who they are as a person. And if they're going to be successful, the institution will be successful.
That's right. That's right. I love that microculture, where those teams come together like that. So, how do you ensure that the organization and its activities are aligned with your core values?
For for me, it is. I'm older now. I have to. I interview them as much as they're interviewing me, because if you are misaligned, you will not stay in that culture.
Ah,
Be disenfranchised, you will be disillusioned, you will feel the life draining out of you. And so you have got to know as a leader that the core mission and vision of that hospital, what what is important to them is important to you. And for me, it's always about my staff and it's always about the community that we serve. And if those two things do not align, I can't work there.
ah, I love it. I love it. Now, when you are faced with two equally qualified candidates, how you determine whom to hire?
Well, I don't determine who to hire anyway. I do employee I let the staff interview, and so they make that decision. And if they come to me and they have questions about who they should hire, I always go, "Have you prayed about it?"
Hmm.
And with that, um, have you prayed about it? Where is God leading you? And so, even for myself, that is how I make that decision. If I have two equally qualified candidates, I just ask God to open up my heart to whom He would have served there.
Yeah, I think it's important that you let the staff decide, because if it's their decision,
Right.
right, they will support that decision. And I
That's it.
think that's what we, do. Sometimes we kind of don't do it, but we kind of decide, well, this is who should be here. But most of the time, that is what makes or breaks that candidate, whether they're going to come in and they're going to be successful, and whether they won't be successful, for sure. Because if you have the staff that's already there behind them, then that is super important. What is one characteristic that you think every leader should possess?
Integrity.
I knew you were going to say that.
I knew you would.
If you are not telling the truth, that is
Woo.
never, ever good.
No, I think I think business creates that um, sometimes, I don't want to say misguided individual, but people smudge the truth, and it is what it is, you know. So you have to, you cannot live in the gray area. I've heard that so many times from various people, that Kim, you need to learn how to live in the gray area. No, I don't. You can. It's either right or wrong or good or bad, and I'm not gonna. I'm not going to compromise my integrity for that, for anything like that.
That's good. That's good. Especially, on the front lines, because I know that you have been asked some hard questions, as it relates to, your staff and on the front lines.
Yeah.
And you've had to make some hard decisions as it relates to that. But the one thing that I value about you is that hands down, you have always had your staff in the forefront of your mind. Always, always, always. And that is an invaluable, is very invaluable in today's time, for sure. Because if you take out the healthcare professional, then who's there to take care of your patients, right? There's nobody there to take care. So you have to support the healthcare professional in every way. So, what is the biggest challenges that you think nurse leaders face today?
I think there is, when we step away from who we are, I think there are people who trying to get to where they want to be compromise who they are. And the moment that you compromise your integrity, your self value, what you truly believe in, you cannot make the change that you want to make. You become like the institution. And I mean that like as the global institution, right? It becomes
Right.
all about you and not about the staff that you desire to serve or the patients that you desire to care for. And our job as nursing leaders is really to create that environment in which nurses thrive in to give the care that our patients deserve.
I think that that's very important. One of the things that I have struggled with in the past is when I went into an organization or went into a role, tried to go into a role that was not really designed for me. And, truth telling is something that I'm just like, I'm gonna tell the truth.
Oh, yes, you are.
So, I mean,
We,
if you
we share that.
if you like it, we're good. But I need for you to know, the primary reasons for that. And I think that's super important as it relates to leadership and nursing, for sure. Now, how do you keep your team motivated despite conflicts? Because in the emergency department, there is a lot of that can be a lot of conflict and a lot of obstacles, because you're dealing, especially in this moment, right? You're dealing with a whole lot of unknowns. And then, nurses in the emergency department, I mean, or in emergency services, as a general rule, you know, we show up as kind of bosses, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so
We are bosses. That's right.
so it can be hard sometimes to tamper that. So how do you keep them motivated despite their conflicts and their obstacles?
So I think first of all is keeping everybody's eye on the goal. What is your goal? And I always ask people, there's two things that nurses have to live by every day. One, why did I become a nurse? Because why I became a nurse is what encourages you every day to show up at your best, right? And
Right.
then if that is on, I tell people put it on your refrigerator because that's what you need to look at every single day. And then the second thing is you've got to ask yourself, is healthcare a right or a privilege? And I think we fail to ask ourselves those questions. And the moment that we figure that out, everything becomes a lot clearer because patients don't come into the emergency department to conflict arises, like you're saying, Viola, when
Mhm.
there is whatever's going on around us doesn't agree with who we are, right? And
Right.
so if you go ahead and deal with some of those things up front, then it's already dealt with in your mind, right? And so the way that you perceive that is going to be different. My job is to remove the barrier. So if there is a barrier in their way to provide care, I remove it. Then they have to deal with whatever internal stimuli that they have that they consider conflict, right? Because we have conflict every single day. What matters is, and I think this is where nurses struggle with, is the care they think the patient deserves, they don't always get, right? And so and that causes internal discord for them, right? They have that internal struggle. So with that, we have to go ahead and create that culture for them that they can deliver the care that they want and have the intimacy coming alongside the patient in their journey. And for me, anything that creates a discord with them internally, when they cannot deliver that care, is where that barrier is. And that's my job as leaders, to remove it.
Yeah, and that's true and super important because your purpose and how you show up, that is number one. And I don't think I even realized that, and understanding. I knew that I needed to show up and I knew that I needed to take care of patients, but having that purpose driven, because when I came into, healthcare, it wasn't because I necessarily wanted to change anything. It was just what was thrown at me, right? And because it was thrown at me, I just kind of came in and started doing what I needed to do. But once I figured out what the primary purpose is, and that at the base of Maslow's hierarchy is your physiological being. So if I'm helping you to get to that self-actualization, then I have done my job, right?
Exactly right.
so so what are some things that you do, that you are doing to ensure that you are growing and developing as a leader?
Well, I think as nurses, we're lifelong learners. So
Mhm.
you cannot get stagnant with where you are. And so, just like you, I think I've shared similar journeys. I was a nursing assistant, and then I became a nurse. I was associate degree nurse, and then I went back and got my bachelor's degree, and then I went back and got my master's degree, and I've enrolled into a DNP program.
You better do it. You better do
Yeah,
it.
in January. Here we go. Woo, terminal degree. And I think and for me, as a bedside nurse, and I tell all my staff this, it's about getting every single certification I absolutely could, because it was about delivering the absolute best care that I could, right? And the
Right.
only way I could deliver the best care is to know the most recent data, evidence based practice. Because if it was, and you've got to think about all those things, people don't realize nurses are the last defense for our patients, because our physicians are so busy seeing so many patients, especially in the emergency department, that we've got to teach ourselves about looking at lab values and looking at medications and looking at the physical assessment, because often we're the eyes and ears for the physician.
That's
Maybe
right.
it's a story that we picked up on, or a smell that the physician didn't get a chance to pick up on, that we can take back to them. And so for me, it's about that. It is that lifelong learning, and um, challenging myself now as a leader, not only in the clinical aspect, but also in the leadership aspect. You have to identify your theory of leadership, and then everything you do to grow has to revolve around that. You can't be wishy-washy. You've got to make that decision and then power through, so that you can grow.
So what is your theory of leadership?
I use servant leadership, but I
Okay.
also use transformational leadership too, because I do believe that as a leader, to whom God has given much, much is expected, and it
Right.
is my responsibility as a leader to create more leaders. And I think nurses go into nursing and have the solutions, right? Each one of us brings our own experience and understanding, and so maybe they worked at a grocery store, or maybe they worked at fast food, and they're used to processing people quickly. They can use those experience to give us feedback about how that can work better in the emergency department. And I love that. I love taking people's thoughts and opinions and ideas and experiences to help our community, or a hospital, be better for the community.
And again, if they make the decision, again, they're bought into it. And the certification, I remember going for my CEN, and I remember thinking, oh my God, but I learned so much in going for that certification that I didn't even want. Right. The only reason why I went for it was because the manager at the
Okay.
time, she said that we could go on this trip to this nursing conference if we got a certification. And I was like, okay, I get my certification.
I'm going.
So I ended up taking the test and not passing it, missing it by one the first time,
Yep.
and then going back. But I still learned a lot. But in also, when you said servant leadership, that is huge, huge, because you're serving the people in which you are, you're leading, period. And once you learn that, then everything else is a game changer.
I think, mhm.
So
I
what are
think
some, go
I'll
ahead.
interrupt. I think that's where I think sometimes we lose our focus as leadership, is that we don't realize sometimes that our role, it's just it may have a different title, but the end goal is still the same. The patient has the best experience, right? And if we ever see ourselves anything more than as a method for the staff nurse, the frontline staff, to get what they need done, that's when we lose touch with ourselves. In reality, right? Our job is
Right.
not to sit in the office or be involved in meetings all day. Although I do know now, it took me a while to realize that being present is important, because um, you have to be able to be the mouthpiece for the area that you serve. But we still have to remember, at the end of the day, being in the department with the staff and the patient is key to success.
That's
Without
right.
it, you cannot make that successful change.
That's right. And being very present with your staff. I've walked past leaders, not all the time, but I think one of the things that I just a kind word, just speaking, right? The leader of our organization currently now is amazing. I mean, he when he walks past me, he speaks, right? And
Yeah.
that's important, because, there are some that don't. And, I think that's important for us to understand, that is important for our staff also. Now, what is some advice that you would give someone who was going into leadership for the first time?
Well, first of all, you have to ask yourself, why are you going into it?
Yeah,
I think that's the most important people. I mean, the most important thing, because if you're going into it for anything other than altruistic reasons, you will not be successful, right? So if your desire is to elevate others and to create that culture or to create that environment for patients, um, unless you have that, you will fail. And then you see so many leaders who get very angry and frustrated about being unable to create that cultural change. They don't realize it's not about them. It's not about you. It's all about your staff. It's all about your patients. And the moment that you realize that, you'll be able to create that change.
that's right. That's right. I love it. I love it. So now, what are some of a few of the resources that you would recommend to someone who is going into leadership for the first time?
Well, me and you share one thing. I love John Maxwell. So
Yes.
I read a lot of his leadership books. I think that is important. I study a lot of the Disney Institute and Quint Studer for for customer service. But if you really think about it, customer service is hospitality. And from Eastern North Carolina, we are good at that, right? Feed people, feed people, be nice, and make sure that they understand they're the most important thing to you. So I think you've got to understand these other various businesses and how they were successful, and then use that to transform your own environment. And then lastly, I like Proverbs 31 women. I read a lot of their books, and I think that is important. You've got to be able to identify other leaders that have similar values as you do, and then how did they become successful, what was important to them, and in their writings they can help deliver a nugget. That's what I call it, those little nuggets of wisdom to help you become a better person.
And John Maxwell, of course, is the reason. So when I could just didn't understand leadership at the core of what it was, John Maxwell is like, when you look up leadership, his name comes up. But it's not only that, when you talk about the Proverbs 31. You know, Lisa Turker is amazing. And literally, when I started my journey after me and my ex-husband divorced each other, she had a book that I read that was, I forgot what, Unglued,
Yep.
making good decisions or great decisions in the midst of raw emotion. And that was the thing that helped me. That was what helped me get out of that. And I think it's important that we learn from our leaders today. And I remember because her aunt used to work at the hospital. And that's how I found out about her, because her aunt was like, "Oh, I'm taking this jet plane to Charlotte." And I was like, "Well, how are you getting on this plane to go to Charlotte?" And she said, "Well, my niece, her name is Lisa Turker. She's got some books." And I was like, "Well, she does." And so I went to look her up, and I remember that I had seen her on Oprah, and I was like, "Oh yeah, let me read about this young lady right here." So she's been through a lot, but she is a boss. I gotta give her props. So if you listen, Miss Lisa. Okay, this is your props right here.
Right.
Anyway, thank you for coming on. My name is Dr. Viola Pierce, owner and CEO of VP Nursing and the Nurse Nurturer and the facilitators of Secret Supples Worldwide with Dr. V, where our goal is to equip healthcare professionals to be financially stable to lead a full, empowered life. Our goal is to come to you each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to give you the fuel to crush your goals, to show up exceptional on a daily basis. You can follow us on Twitter at The Nurse Nurturer, Instagram at VP Nursing, and if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and please share this video. You can also visit us at our website at vpnursing.com.